deer and elk were food, and it is common to see the references of animals being revered that are the food source of the culture. The Native American people are a prime example of this with their different stories. It doesn't mean that the stories are literally true, but that it connected the people to nature. Christians invaded and tortured a harmless religion and turned it into the devil. Christians, when they invade an area, start off by demonizing any god of that culture. This was done over and over again, and another example of this is the Mayan culture, when the Spanish invaded that land. All through history we see evidence of Christians going into an area and being the ones bringing death and suffering, not that they are the victims. The Inquisitions lasted over 700 years and killed unknown numbers of people. One estimate that I saw stated the death toll was around 5 million, if not more, tortured to death by the church. It was not just the Catholic Church that engaged in behavior of this nature, but the Protestant Church as well. Even though some Protestants were tortured by Catholics, when they got power, the idea that they would have learned that this is wrong and shouldn't have been done was apparently missed, because they turned right around and did the exact same thing. To give you an idea of the types of things these good Christians were doing to show the love of Jesus, here is a list of the 12 most horrifying torture devices of the Inquisitions. Bear in mind, these were done by people that professed to be acting on behalf of God. This is what that type of thinking can lead to. Number 12, heretic's fork. One end of this device was pushed under the chin, the other into the sternum, with the strap securing this torture tool to the victim's neck. Immobilized and in great pain, the victim would have to mouth off the word in Latin, "I recant," or they'll end up being hanged or worse, burned at the stake. Note, a heretic is someone that has ideas or views contrary to the church. Number 11, lead sprinkler. This tool, which kind of reminds me of the holy water sprinkler, was filled with either molten lead, tar, or boiling oil or boiling water, then used to bless or torture its victims by dripping its contents onto their stomach, back, and other body parts. Number 10, the pendulum. The pendulum was a good way to extract confessions. With the help of a rope, the victim's wrists were tied behind his back, and the torturer turned the handle. The rope slowly elevated the victim, dislocating the victim's shoulders. This was very seldom a lethal torture method, as torturers used the pendulum most for inflicting psychological fear to extract confessions before actually hurting the victim. If the victim refused to confess, the torturer could elevate the rope high enough to dislocate both shoulders, causing permanent damage. If the victim still failed to confess, torturers could employ more painful devices to finally extract the confession. Many confessed by the mere sight of this device. Number 9, the breast ripper. This one is self-explanatory. Many women condemned as heretics, adulterers, blasphemers had their breasts ripped out using this device. Number 8, Iron Maiden. No, not the 80s heavy metal band, but an iron cabinet found in Nuremberg, Germany. The interior of this device is lined with strategically placed sharp objects that is intended to torture a person unlucky enough to be put inside it. These spikes impaled the victim in the eyes, the chest, and the back. but usually missed vital organs so as to leave the victim bleeding profusely and in great pain, but still alive for a period of time. Number 7. Crocodile shears. Crocodile shears are just how they sound. 2 iron cast sides of a tube, the insides of which featured rows of spikes, which are then heated by the torturer and placed on certain appendages. Here's where it gets really ugly. The crocodile shears are clamped onto the victim's penis, and with only a modicum of applied tension, then slowly and painfully separating him from his smoldering manhood. Depending on factors like blood loss and infection, death is hardly a certainty, a point which surely contributes to the torture. Number 6. The street sweeper's daughter. The street sweeper's daughter worked by compressing the victim's body, just like the rack, but inversely so. The torturer could tighten the device or loosen it up depending on the victim's offense. This device, although not very painful looking, was often employed publicly to humiliate the victim. Those particularly hated individuals were often at the mercy of an angry crowd that often threw stones and fecal matter to the exposed victim. The immobilized victim was also frequently led to madness, as the torture period could last for weeks or months. Number 5. The Pope's Pear. Also known as the Pear of Anguish, the Choke Pear, and simply the Pear, the business end of this handheld device bears slight resemblance to a pear with a handle on a screw at the other end. Commit sodomy, adultery, incest, heresy, blasphemy, or sexual union with Satan in medieval Europe, and chances are you'll get this intricately decorated device inserted into your mouth, rectum, or vagina. A screw mechanism then makes its pointed leaves expand while inside any of those orifices, resulting in severe internal mutilation. Number 4. The wheel. This device is known by many names, such as breaking wheel and Catherine wheel, but it only means one thing to those who perished by its means: pure agony. The wheel is more like an execution device, but the hours before actual death is excruciating. The victim is tied to the side of the wheel, then gets every bone in his body shattered, one by one, by the executioner using a hammer or iron bar. Victims of this form of torture often took hours or even days to die. Some were fortunate enough to be granted mercy in the form of fatal blows to the chest or stomach. Number 3. The Brazen Bull. This is one particularly brutal torture/execution device. The Brazen Bull is an execution/torture device designed in ancient Greece. Perlos of Athens, a brass founder, proposed to Flarius, a tyrant of Agriantum, the invention of a new means for executing criminals. Accordingly, he cast a brazen bull made totally of brass, hollow, with a door in the side.